Former Buffalo police officer Cariol Horne in a battle tonight to get her pension. She was fired for trying to stop a fellow officer she says was abusing a suspect. And tonight she is telling her side of the story to 7 Eyewitness News reporter Kendra Eaglin.
November 1st, 2006, there was a call of an officer in trouble at 707 Walden.
That officer, Gregory Kwiatkowski, who was responding to a domestic dispute inside of that home between Neal Mack and his girlfriend. When Officer Cariol Horne went into the house, she says Mack had already been placed under arrest.
He was handcuffed in the front, and he was sideways and being punched in the face by Gregory Kwiatkowski.
Horne and about 10 other officers who arrived at the scene helped drag Mack out of the home, but once outside, Horne says Officer Kwiatkowski was out of control.
Gregory Kwiatkowski turned Neal Mack around and started choking him. So then I'm like, Greg, you're choking him, because I thought whatever happened in the house he was still upset about. So when he didn't stop choking him, then I just grabbed his arm from around Neal Mack's neck.
If that chokehold of a handcuffed suspect caught Horne off guard, it didn't prepare her for what she says Kwiatkowski did next.
He comes up and punches me in the face, and so I had to have my bridge replaced.
Horne says other officers pulled her back when she tried to defend herself. Following that incident, Horne was fired, charged with obstruction for jumping on Officer Kwiatkowski's back and or striking him with her hands. But Officer Kwiatkowski's own words seem to conflict with the charges. In sworn testimony, he says, "She never got on top of me." Nonetheless, Horne lost every appeal, her 19-year career over, and she didn't qualify for a pension. The breadwinner for her 5 children, Horne, now a truck driver to make ends meet.
The recent protests now putting new scrutiny on the role of fellow officers who witness other officers using excessive force. A former Buffalo police officer was fired in 2008 when she says she stopped a white police officer's chokehold on a black suspect. Now there are calls for an investigation. Here is CBS 2's Jerika Duncan.
Looking at the video, it was very upsetting. And I felt that if one of those officers had stepped in, that he would be alive today.
Cariol Horne, a nearly 20-year veteran of the Buffalo Police Department, says the image of George Floyd dying at the hands of police is triggering. In 2006, then Officer Horne made headlines after intervening when she says fellow officer Greg Kwiatkowski was choking a black suspect, Neal Mack.
What was it that day that made you jump in?
Neal Mack looked like he was about to die. So had I not stepped in, he possibly could have. He was handcuffed and being choked.
The Buffalo Police Department brought disciplinary charges against Horne and fired her in 2008, a few months before she was eligible to receive a full pension. Greg Kwiatkowski sued Horne and her lawyer for defamation. In 2011, a judge found that 8 statements Horne's lawyer made were defamatory and false, including the claim that Horne saved the life of a suspect who was already in handcuffs and was being choked out by Officer Greg Kwiatkowski. Neal Mack, the suspect at the center of the nearly 14-year-old case, maintains to this day that Cariol Horne saved his life.
He was choking me. I was handcuffed. Cariol Horne said, "You killing him, Greg," and she reached over and tried to grab his hand around my neck.
In 2012, in a lawsuit brought by Mack, a jury found no wrongdoing by the Buffalo police officers involved in his arrest. As for Greg Kwiatkowski, he was sentenced to 4 months in federal prison in 2018 for using unlawful and unreasonable force against 4 black teenagers.
Unlawful, unnecessary force. The same thing that I said he did.
Horne says she's turned her pain into activism. When she saw the recent video of Buffalo police pushing a 75-year-old protester to the ground, she says it was yet another trigger.
So now if they can push the 75-year-old white man when it's still daylight out, just think of what they do to our young black kids at nighttime.
Horne says these days she's at peace because she stands by what she did. Still, she broke down when I asked her how this has impacted her children.
It's important for me to be truthful because this has been a lot of years. So when you talk about where did the raw emotion come from, it's because I have fought all of these years and tried to keep it together for my children.
Horne is fighting for her full pension, and she's pushing legislation called Cariol's Law. She says it would protect police who intervene from being retaliated against. As for the Buffalo Police Department, they issued this statement to CBS News saying in 2006, Officer Horne requested that her case be reviewed by an independent arbitrator. The arbitrator recommended termination after lengthy hearings, and the police commissioner followed that recommendation.
Officer Kwiatkowski retired from the police force after he was suspended for choking another officer on the job, a separate incident of punching another officer when he was off the clock, and most recently, Kwiatkowski and 2 other officers were indicted on civil rights charges for holding down a black teenager and shooting him with a BB gun.